Is the news required to tell the truth? It's an important question to consider. And it made me wonder, who is required to tell us the truth? I was surprised to learn that advertisers are. In America, product advertisers are regulated by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and they say that ads must be truthful, not misleading, and if possible, backed by scientific evidence. For example, Airborne is a supplement that claimed to prevent the flu and common cold, but they didn't have any evidence to back it up. And they had to pay over $23 million because they couldn't prove what they had said was true. And the FTC exists to protect us. But what about the news? Are they required to be truthful, not misleading? And is there a federal agency protecting people from misinformation? I am one of the founders of a nonprofit community radio station and have an FM broadcasting license with the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. There are many rules and regulations that we have to follow, and one of them is that we are prohibited from distorting the news or spreading false information. And the FCC regulates everything that's said over a public airwave. So what's a public airwave? It's radio, TV, or any other digital media that has a primary objective of public service. So some examples include PBS or NPR, as well as many local television and radio stations. But what about cable news? What about print media or anything you find on the internet? Is there any agency holding them accountable for if and when they do not tell the truth? The answer is no. There's not. You see, telling a lie for the most part is protected under the First Amendment right, freedom of speech and freedom of the press. But that's not to say that there's not a consequence for cable news when they don't tell the truth. Recently, Dominion Voting Systems sued a cable news network for saying that their voting machines didn't work properly during an election. And that cable news network paid Dominion $787 million for saying what they did. But the FCC didn't get involved. It's outside of their jurisdiction because cable news doesn't have a primary objective of public service. You could say their primary objective is profit. But it didn't always used to be this way. There has been this radical shift in American media over the past 50 years. The FCC used to be highly involved in regulating what broadcasters could say on the air. From the 1940s to the 1980s, there was a piece of legislation called the Fairness Doctrine, and it said that broadcasters should devote airtime to issues of public importance, and when talking about a controversial matter, to present both sides. So if the topic was climate change or immigration, you would hear from someone who was for it and someone who was against it in the same program. It was the FCC's attempt to create more diverse programming, and it had an effect on the public. Americans were more politically tolerant because they were being exposed to opposing points of view on a regular basis. They got information from both sides of the aisle and then decided how they wanted to interpret it. And if a broadcaster didn't follow the rules of the Fairness Doctrine, they would lose their right to be on the air. In 1969, a company called Red Lion Broadcasting sued the FCC over the Fairness Doctrine, saying it violated the First Amendment. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court unanimously ruled that it did not. They said that an audience's right to diverse ideas and perspectives weighed more heavily than a broadcaster's right to say whatever they wanted. But even so, in 1987, the Fairness Doctrine was dissolved so that broadcasters are no longer held to the high standard they once were. And many say that this paved the way for the highly divisive rhetoric we hear in our media today. The Pew Research Center has found that the median Democrat and the median Republican are further apart from each other than ever before. One of the effects of deregulation that we're seeing is that both sides of the aisle are becoming more extreme. When we're not exposed to opposing points of view on a regular basis, it has a profound effect on our ideology. Individual people are not the problem. People are not more divided than they were before. The media that they consume is, and that is an important distinction. The more divisive media we consume, the more divisive we tend to become. In the same way that the food we eat has a huge impact on our minds and bodies, the same is true for the media that we consume. But even if the fairness doctrine was reinstated today, it wouldn't apply to cable news, networks like CNN, Fox, or MSNBC that can reach almost half the country. And this kind of reach is relatively new in our history, because from the 1930s to the 1990s, there were strict regulations on how many outlets any one media company could own. It was very limited, so it naturally created diversity in who owned the news and the ideas and perspectives that were being broadcast. But the Telecom Act of 1996, it changed the balance of power in the United States. The Telecom Act removed those ownership restrictions that were in place so that the free market could decide how large any one media company could become, rather than having the FCC limit it. Broadcasters said it would increase competition, but it has done just the opposite. It has led to mass media consolidation in our country and to the loss of local and independent media in our communities. Today, over 90% of everything we read, watch, or hear is owned by just 6 media companies. In nature, the more diverse something is, the stronger and healthier it tends to be. And I think that's true for us as individuals as well. The more diverse media we consume, the more well-rounded and tolerant we will be, because being exposed to new and different ideas is good for us, even if we disagree with those ideas. And it's important that we do this because we have this tendency to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs and values and to reject information that goes against it. It's called confirmation bias, and all humans have it. And just being aware that we do this can help us interact with information we normally wouldn't come in contact with. And we have to be active participants in doing this because there is an algorithm on every digital device that we use that's trying to predict what we want to see or hear next. It's called a filter bubble. And in addition to deregulation and mass media consolidation, it's another reason why we're not exposed to more diverse content in our daily lives. There is so much information out there. This algorithm's trying to sort through it all and help us find what we're looking for. But the problem is, it can keep important ideas and information away from us and give us the incorrect and unrealistic idea that other people believe the same things we do. For example, if I thought the earth was flat, I could find information out there to confirm that belief. And the more that I clicked on it, my algorithm would detect a pattern and would go looking for more information of the same type to send to me. And any information about the earth being a sphere, it wouldn't come my way. It's not that that information isn't out there, it is, but I have to overcome my confirmation bias and get out of my filter bubble and actively seek it out so that I get a better picture of the issue that I'm trying to understand. Human nature has proven that without regulations, we tend to go too far. The regulations that we have in place are there to keep us safe. We have confidence in the water we drink and the cars we drive because they're highly tested. And when we go into a restaurant or step onto an elevator, we can see the certificate of inspection and know that it's safe to use. And we have faith in these public services and utilities because they are highly regulated. And we are losing faith in the media because it is not. What this means is that it's now our responsibility to regulate the information we receive because it's no longer being done for us. We need to know the difference between a fact and an opinion. To find out if the media we're consuming is driven by public service or by profit, and to fact check the information we receive because it doesn't always have to be true. The news is important. It informs us, it connects us, and at its best can make our lives and our society better. And at its worst, it can divide and destroy us. There are many incredible journalists and people who work in the media that care deeply about the news and work hard to bring it to us every day. Many risk their lives for the truth to be known because they understand that information is power. It always has been, and it always will be. The news doesn't always have to tell the truth, so be sure you listen carefully.